So hello people, welcome to the world of Veriff. I would like to see all of you at Veriff at some point of time, but that's about it in terms of advertising Veriff as a place to work. But I'll give you a little bit of information how it is to work for Veriff. So yeah, let's get going. So a little bit about myself, those who don't know me. This is my third unicorn. So prior to Veriff, it used to be Pipedrive, and even earlier, it used to be Skype. So it's been a tremendous honor to work for these companies, and it's been a really rough ride. And now with Veriff, also it's now my fourth year soon. So I started with the company when we had like 20 people, and I've been really able to witness the growth of complexity and how hard it is to actually build a product. But yeah, let's get started. So what is Veriff? Some of you maybe have seen it, have tried it, had to use Veriff to identify themselves remotely. But essentially what you do is that you show your document, you show your face, and in 6 seconds you have an answer. Whether it's approved or declined. And then Veriff clients, of course, they are going into those sessions. Our stack is integrated with theirs, so they see the answers as well, and they can move on with approving you as a end user in a way. So what's really curious about Veriff is that it's actually something relatively simple to do if you think about it, right? But there is a lot of things in the background. And a couple of things that really describe Veriff are our core metrics. So for Veriff clients, the conversion, meaning how many people go through the flow, and then the speed, meaning that how real time is an experience, and the accuracy are really the key metrics that our clients are looking at. And depending on the flow, whether it's in the beginning of the onboarding or it's at the later stage where you want to validate some transactions, of course, those requirements to those metrics are also different. So Veriff has really grown quite big. We are now a 500 people company in Tallinn, Tartu, London, Barcelona, New York. And the moment when I joined 4 years ago, we had 5 developers and 3 monolith services. And today there is a product design and engineering organization that is 160 people strong, and we have more than 100 microservices in action. So hypergrowth is really messy business. Some say that 1 year in startup is like 5 years in the normal company, right? So 20 years of experience with Veriff now behind me. But let's dive into business. So what is the problem? When I have to put my developer hat on, then of course I would like to work better as myself and also collaborate better with the rest of with other functions. So, and it's in my interest, of course, because, I have, if I'm working on some of the clearer things, I'm probably more happy. And when I'm more happy, I make less mistakes. If I make less mistakes, then my company value grows, and then my options package will be bigger as well. So let's do a little bit of Googling. Where you turn, right? For first answers is Google. So I Googled this, the relationship between product and engineering, and this is what I found, right? The de facto statement here is the first match, basically says that everything that I also believe is true. So it's stating the obvious, and if I look a little bit deeper into this, what I see is really the Conway's law in action. So what's the Conway's law? Is that any organization that designs the systems will actually produce the designs that match with the communication structure of the company. So if our communication between product and engineering is broken, well, our product is going to be broken. If our communication between one team and another team is broken, that relationship in the product is broken and the architecture is broken. So, and there seems to be some tension, right? People also search by Google thinks so, that they search for the what's the problem there, right? Right. So there are really two things that I just want to highlight in the beginning. First is that now I'm putting my product hat again on, and is that who you actually hiring. Basically, you have to understand that what level of company development, what kind of people you need, actually. So you might have an aspiration to hire a product manager, but then you might end up treating that product manager as a project manager, basically conveying your visions and doing exactly what you tell them to. So they're not probably going to be very happy, right? Because they get their vision coming to them by somebody else, like a CEO, for example. If I bring the horse example here, or like a metaphor, so are you hiring the horseman, product managers, or you are hiring the coachman, which is basically product owners, or are you hiring somebody who just takes care of the stable and make sure that every resources are there and the horses are happy, etc. By the way, this horse analogy to developer is completely accidental, but in some companies it may be so, hopefully not in yours. So what usually happens, company starts to grow, CEO hires first product manager, and they end up doing, basically conveying CEO's vision into the product, doing the project manager work. And then complexity grows, team grows, more dependencies, architecture gets more complex, and everyone starts to fail more and more, and then productivity dips, and boom, you're done. You are in the negative cycle, and it's very hard to get out of it. Right, so, and then what happens? CEO loses the confidence in product and engineering organization, thinking, okay, I have this brilliant idea, why they can't just build it overnight? Because it's actually pretty simple. Not knowing that the complexities have grown already to a level that it's not actually that simple to do. Right, so I'm quoting Marty Kagan here from the book called Inspired. What you need is missionaries, not mercenaries. Because if I hire a mercenary, they go and do the kill. But what you need to do is to hire missionaries that actually build stuff, right? Righty, let's move on. The second thing, which is really important, and I'm coming back to Veriff as well, is that is your product management actually supported by the whole culture of the company? So there are two conflicting goals in product managers' lives, basically. One is, of course, that you need to deliver something valuable to the customers. And then you need to deliver something valuable for the business. If you deliver something valuable for the customers, you want to increase its value, lower the price, which is not probably very good for business. Or you want to make customizations that make them happy, that completely diverge your strategy in the product team side. So product people are really in tough position to make those compromises. What you essentially have to do is, of course, you have to do both. What then even happens is that you have those uneducated buyers who actually don't know what they want. And then you have those uneducated sellers who are basically ready to offer anything that those people who don't know what they want actually want. So what then happens is that basically the whole team is working on features that are not really attacking the opportunities that we have. Now a little bit into making myself vulnerable and opening up to you. So we don't know how it works. Thank you. Okay, I'm not giving up. I'm not in giving up business. So that's not my business. I wanna go deeper. It sounds bad, right? But I guess solving the problem is the first step in terms of, recognizing the problem is the first step in towards the solution. So it's definitely not a science. I mean, it's it's a pretty straightforward problem in every company, right? And if I think about relationship between product and engineering, it really depends. Well, as always, it depends. So what does it depend of? First, of course, the maturity of teams and services. You know, you can have teams that are very mature in terms of how they function. They have gone through this forming, norming, whatever stages, you know, matured, etc. Or they could have services that are really like well-polished, they are scalable, they're well-tested. So for them, the relationship is something different. Also, the architecture of the solution. How much dependencies you have between the teams. You might have a product architecture that is completely different to the stack architecture. That actually, if you want to do anything in product, you have to change something through the stack, which is completely like waste of time, basically. So the stack has been built in a way that everything you need to do or change, you have to write code for. Not good if you want to scale and be a sort of a hundreds of millions of dollars worth of company. So, like I said, in Veriff, our stack has really changed from sort of a free monolith services into a lot of microservices talking to various different layers to each other. And all those teams actually own those services. We are now in the stage where we are moving towards this sort of a popular trend where you have a sort of a platform services, horizontal teams, and then you have verticals that go into a specific market segment to take it. So it's really like coming back to the point that I said earlier that I don't know what we are doing. It's really a kind of gamble, but you have something still you can do, right? So it's more like a poker. I guess the effectiveness of any organization can be measured in results. So if your organization is effective and is working well together, you have great results, right? But of course, those results have more sort of contributing factors to them as well. So if I'm using the sort of poker analogy here, if you have strong cards at hand, what does it mean? It means that you have well-resourced and skilled team that has mature services and are on top of their games, right? Then you can go all in and really build something big and fast and well. But if you have a weak hand, then you sometimes have to bluff, right? You have to go into this hero mode and do something quickly, creating a lot of technical depth in a progress, and still achieve the outcome because your bluff wasn't called. So when you have to do that bluffing, and well, we have been doing a lot of bluffing, is that you have to be open and transparent about it within the team, right, within the organization. And that really matters, right? So a little bit of tips. Honesty and transparency goes a long way. Yes, so from startup to scale up, basically, I mean, your specialization increases all the time. The ownership really starts to be a problem for you because different teams own different parts of the stack, and if it doesn't meet with the product architecture very well, then you have a problem. What you can do here is, of course, talk about those things and specifically understand what some people do and what are the expectations between them, right? So where we are today, we are basically outlining the full career growth, what goes to roles and titles. And titles are one thing. You are like, I don't know, staff engineer or a senior software engineer. But roles is totally another thing. So you can fill many roles having that title. And if you build out those career frameworks, you actually provide the whole organization opportunity to understand what are expectations certain people need to fill. So collaboration with engineers, I guess for the product, where you're at is that if you fail to involve engineers into this sort of problem assessment and solution discovery phases, then they only get to do what you tell them to do, right? So if you don't talk about it in the team, that creates lots of tensions. I mean, Marco was on stage here explaining exactly that situation earlier today. And moving on, when we started with Veriff, we hired about 40 engineers in 6 months in 2019. And well, we didn't have any guidelines to give them because there was nobody to even write or compose those guidelines. So they really started with full autonomy. And teams are in different sizes and skills and maturity, and they have different maturity of services, and they are building and supporting all those services. So those highly autonomous teams really fostered the ownership. So for each service, we know what the service ownership means, and we know exactly who owns it. And now, we are basically dealing with the consequences of all that freedom that we gave to people. But luckily, we now have also some guidelines in place, hopefully which will not limit the creativity, so teams then can still choose whether they use Kanban, Scrum, tooling, frameworks, stack, etc. Yes, so if team ownership or the service ownership is really clear, then teams can start thinking in terms of interfaces to other teams as well. Who are their clients and who are their contributors, basically, whom they are dependent on and who depend on them, basically. Yep. Now the second big secret. So whatever we want to do from engineering side to make the input quality better and have better processes, we can't really ignore the product side and designers as well, right? So we have to do it together. There is no other way around it, basically. So we expect people to fill their title, to fill their role, but we need everybody's involvement. And for the PMs, the fact is, and maybe that's a little bit hard to hear, but you don't know everything, right? And you have lots of smart people around you, so why not utilize them? Because you as a team win and lose together, so everybody basically must be part of that solution, right? It's so obvious that even saying it out loud feels a little bit awkward. But now coming to engineers, Marco very well described here the situation where another colleague was just silent. And he had this amygdala hijacked and went bazooka and basically yelled at the product managers, right? So if your engineers don't speak up, what you are basically committing to do is to your own unhappiness in future, which is unlogical thing to do, basically. So, I mean, teams, they fail together. It's nothing that they can't separate the team member out of it. So, and for the engineers, if you don't speak up, yes, you might end up working with something that you don't believe in. And we all know what the feeling is like, right? I mean, it doesn't lead to a lot of happiness. So how to get that communication working? Again, saying it out loud sounds like too obvious, but I'll do it anyway. What's the mission? Why the team is there? Why the team exists? I mean, if that question is not answered, if there is no alignment around that question, then you just should go and reiterate. Ask it again and again and again. Because otherwise, the ownership is going into silos, like product owns their stuff, engineering owns their stuff, and the team breaks down. And so this explanation why we exist needs to be constantly there. And it's not only like product or only engineering job, it's a team job, basically. So a little bit of tips. For the PMs, of course, the listening skills are quite important in addition to the speaking skills or self-expression capabilities. Those guys usually are extroverts. That's because they have that role, right? I mean, it's one expectation that you can fluently explain what you want people to do. For engineers, of course, you have to ask questions and speak up. So constantly coming back to the problem statement, what are we trying to solve? And that way, when they speak up, they actually get involved into this sort of a problem assessment and solution discovery phases, sort of a mini waterfalls that are usually happening in agile development cycle. Because if you don't show interest as an engineer to the problem that you're trying to solve, you also don't get included into the solution designing. You only are expected to deliver something that you actually might even not understand. So how to talk to those people in product so that they would actually listen, how to trigger their listening part. So the worst thing, of course, that happens is that product comes with what and explains from, or expects from engineers the how. And usually it's really difficult actually to understand from the what and how, why is it necessary? What's the opportunity here? How important it is? What's the urgency here? So if why is missing, then why we are doing this at all? And if engineers don't ask us those questions, if they don't put themselves out there to really challenge the product thinking, and then, well, again, you will start working on some weird things. So, what's the mechanics, like challenging your product manager, basically? Well, we all, I guess, can agree that the code writing part of our jobs as engineers is measured in, 10–20% of time. The rest of the time goes to debugging, trying out new things, learning, understanding the problem, designing the solution, doing the code reviews for others, etc. So these days, software engineering is a communication exercise almost. So, I mean, you basically need to ask those questions, ask why. You have to be able to talk in problems, but not in a negative way. And you have to bring in numbers, really challenge the idea, opportunity, and challenge the priority setting that happened before you. And then the team will win, of course. And our third big secret, of course, is that when I put, again, my product manager hat on, is that the product as a function is, of course, still forming. I looked into Tartu University, Jaak is sitting right there, and there is now, since spring 2018, there is a thing called tootejuhtimine, product management, that is led by Marlon Dubois, I believe, in curriculum. But I asked my colleague Duncan to look into topics that are there in curriculum. Well, of course, I noticed also that they're building this sort of business model canvas things there, etc. But Duncan said something worrisome to me, which was that it felt weird, because none of the things that we are talking today is in there. So maybe they are there, maybe they are hidden, but we can talk about it, Jaak. So another great book that I can recommend is this Will Larson's An Elegant Puzzle. And in his book, he basically also says that becoming a product manager is years of exercises, years of work. It's not something that you can just do, become overnight or fresh out of school. Right, so it's still forming. And you know what? Based on our experience, every company is really different. And usually the feeling we get is that the others are wrong. And what does it mean? It means that if we are using some kind of approach in terms of product engineering collaboration, then, and we get results, then this is the right way, because we are getting results. So the application of this relationship can be really different from the company to company. And there is lots of sort of a theory around it and lots of marketing things there as well. But from our experience, and I believe everyone who has been in agile development for some time, they have understood that if you try to apply this sort of book knowledge line by line, it just doesn't work. Coming back to the fact that all teams own services that are in different maturity level and different people with different skill sets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, focus on why, and you get the conversation going. Now I'll come back to the culture part, where I started, like, does the company culture really support the product management as a function, and how much that actually helps us to make that collaboration working. We have values at company level, we have values at engineering level, which are basically company values put into a source of engineering. And if I ask somebody, like, what are the values of Veriff? Well, I might get a vague answer. If I ask somebody what are the values of engineering in Veriff, I don't think even the people can quote them out. That's because none of those values matter if they are not lived by, right? Because people really follow those people who are recognized in the company. So now if you think about engineering and product management sort of collaboration, if you see something noteworthy, make a hero out of that person immediately, because that's what people actually follow. People are very sort of skilled in terms of optimizing for their own success. So if you can a little bit guide that, that gives you the result. Those people who get promoted, they send a message to the rest of the company. And that message is stronger than anything that you have written down in Confluence or put on the poster on the wall. That's, I guess, just fact of life. Righty, I'm about to finish off, so 2 books I mentioned in my presentation. If engineering managers start with An Elegant Puzzle by Will Larson, and then afterwards read The Inspired by Marty Kagan, they are in good situation. Now, if the product managers go and read The Inspired first, and then follow up with An Elegant Puzzle, they are in equally very, very good position, then they can start having conversations. Now, these books are quite interesting because it's really impossible to read it in one go. So the reading, because they're so packed, they're so condensed versions of how the collaboration works, that the reading basically means that you have the book by your side all the time and you just go back to it chapter by chapter, depending where you're at in your daily challenges. That was it. Thank you for listening, and of course, open for any questions.